I'm Benji. I'm working as a medical social worker in a hospital, and I'm here today to talk about death. This is a primary school kind of age. He has this very rare condition that would render him slowly at the start not being able to do a lot of things like other kids, like run around, eat on his own, to eventually not being able to maybe breathe on his own and eventual death lah. So I think I remember this particular family really well because the parents at the start were finding it incredibly difficult to accept this. So when their child was given the timeline of saying that, okay, when this happens, when you start noticing that he cannot walk properly and things like that, then that's when we know the clock starts ticking. And at the start there was a lot of crying naturally. There was a lot of questions, why do these things happen and all that kind of thing. And I thought what was difficult for this set of parents at the start was both mother and father couldn't really talk to each other about their child and their child's condition or how bad the child's condition was. So each parent was basically left to figure things out by himself or herself. Not because they didn't have a good relationship or they were selfish or they were always arguing with each other. They were very loving, as a couple, but just when it comes to their child, it almost becomes like this is not something that we talk about. So maybe it's because of taboo. But to me, I thought it was just basically something that naturally is very difficult to face. It's almost as if talking about it makes it more true. And when talking about it makes it more true, then the pain will start to come as well lah. Thankfully, over time, they started to talk to each other about it. And what was really useful was actually them being one day ready to talk about how they would like their child to live out the rest of his life, and eventually how they would like him to pass away lah. So quite similar to what we would call an advanced medical directive, where you decide what treatments you want or what treatments you don't want. And it's not something that we can just talk about it right at the start. People need to come to a stage of acceptance, to the degree of acceptance before they can talk about it. I think it took almost 2 years, or actually 2 to 3 years before they were eventually ready to actually start talking about it. And I think when people don't talk about it with each other, especially for mom and dad, so in this case, about their child, or in other cases where I have patients who are elderly, but their children find it so difficult to talk to them about it. But when we talk to the elderly about it, and then they are quite candid, in saying that, yeah, I want to know, this is how I want to actually pass away. This is the photo that I want to use, during my funeral. This is what are some of the things that I think I want to happen during my funeral or during the wake, and things like that. But I think it's always more difficult to accept it when people don't want to talk to each other, especially talk to another loved one about it lah. And so for these parents, there was a long period of time where it's basically isolation. So it's almost as if when it comes to this topic, it's another stranger in the house. And I think that also affected the way they spent alone time with each other, which is also very important, I think, in a couple. Or in some of our other situations or some of the other cases where it becomes, if you are very uncomfortable about it, then you would find it so difficult to actually spend time with a person who is actually dying, because it's almost as if there's nothing else to talk about. Like, you have to talk about death in itself, and you're not comfortable, the room just turns quiet, and that can be a very lonely feeling for not only the patient themselves, but also for the other people in the room or the other people in the family, and friends, etc. Yeah. So to me, I think the worst thing about death is being alone, in the entire process. Yeah. whether is it at death or whether is it preparing for death. I think of all things, just like the birth of a child, it should never be done alone lah. Yeah. And so I think for I don't know, for people who are in a similar situation and things like that, there isn't any right way to deal or accept death. No one says that, oh, if you don't accept death, or that you're going to die, or that you don't accept that your loved one is going to die in the next 6 months. You know, if you take longer than that, means there's something wrong with you. You know, I don't think it works like that. But I think what's most important, that no matter how long you take or what way that you take, don't do it alone lah. Yeah. It's the worst possible kind of feeling that anyone can have.